When I was about 14 years old, my mom woke me up to go to the gas station to grab her a snack and to put gas in the car. Mind you, it's like 11:30 p.m., almost midnight. I need to note that I lived near Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis, like you could see the graves from the playground type of close. The gas station I went to was right behind our neighborhood and right in front of some of the cemetery. I go inside, get my mom a snack, and pay for the gas. Then I went outside to pump the gas, and while I'm pumping the gas, I noticed this man standing in the middle of the street, and he looked really angry, so I kind of internally started freaking out, but tried to stay calm on the outside while I kept looking back and forth between him and the gas pump. The next thing I know, there's a car coming up the road, literally in the lane he's standing in, which was the lane closest to the cemetery. The car is literally coming at him, and he's still just standing there, kind of vibrating in anger. Next thing I know, the car hits him, but it didn't actually hit him, it went through him. He literally disappeared, then reappeared 2 seconds after the car passed, and he was more pissed than he was before and starts charging at me. So I hurry up and finish pumping gas and put everything back, and as soon as I get in the car, he's at my window and pounding on it, so I race home. I go back to the gas station the next night and I talk to the clerk and ask him if he saw what happened to me last night outside, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" So I tell him about the angry homeless man that charged my car, and he said, "I was literally watching you the entire time. Nobody else was out there but you, and then you freaked out and sped off." And I was like, "Dude, no, there was an angry homeless man there." And he was like, Look at the camera from last night. You're literally the only person out there." And I was. There hasn't been anyone out there besides me for hours. So, angry gas station cemetery ghost. So this is her next story, and she said, "This one takes place during my junior year of high school, and it was probably about 1.5 to 2 years after my mom passed, and my older sister was in charge of getting me and my niece to school. I would like to note that the car from my first story is the car that my mom had bought for me when I had turned 16 so I could have a car. My sister had just bought a new car and it was parked in front of my car, and both of us were parked in front of the house. I would like to note again that this is still the same house that was close to the cemetery from my first story. It was the day before Halloween at around 6:45 a.m., and my sister sent me outside to go warm up the car because if there's one thing about Indianapolis, it's freezing cold in October. I go outside to warm the car up, and I'm moving fast because, again, it's fucking freezing. I have to walk between the bumpers of my sister and my car to get to the driver's seat of my sister's car, and I just happened to look back into my car because I remembered leaving my favorite cardigan in there and really wanted to wear it. What I see instead of my cardigan is an extremely pale woman. I mean, she was as white as paper with this long, straight, black hair, icy blue eyes, and just a sad look on her face. She looks at me, and I look at her. I can physically see her in the passenger seat of my car, just staring at me with the most sad look on her face. The longer I stare at her, the more I feel this overwhelming feeling of sadness and despair. It's literally making me tear up, and I almost start crying. I must have been standing there 5 minutes just staring at her and feeling this overwhelming sadness and dread that's pulling on every one of my heartstrings. Then I hear my niece yelling my name and asking if I was done warming up the car. I turn my head to answer my niece, and when I look back, the woman is gone, just absolutely dissolved into thin air with zero trace of her, besides my aching heart and the tears that are now rolling down my cheeks. I hurry up and get into the car to turn it on and warm it up, then rush back inside and tell my niece what just happened, and she tells me that she just saw me standing there between the cars staring at my passenger seat. To this day, I have never seen that woman ever again. Sounds like that cemetery has some lingering spirits there, but I will tag Maroon in this video so you can comment and let her know your thoughts on it. If you have any scary stories, send them in to us. You can DM us on here, or you can email us at girlyghosttales@gmail.com, and I will read your stories as well. Bye guys!
The Queen Mary is not the only haunted ship in California. I personally have had an experience with this ship, which inspired me to cover it. Welcome to Haunted US, where we are exploring the ghosts, cryptids, and mysteries of every state. Today we are in San Diego, California. Let's talk about the USS Midway. The USS Midway was a naval carrier that operated from 1945 to 1992. It is the longest serving aircraft carrier in the 20th century. She witnessed many historical events, the entire Cold War era, the Vietnam War. During the fall of Saigon, she took on a massive amount of evacuees. This ship was the flagship in the operation of Desert Storm. 2004, it was open to the public as a museum, and they offer self-guided tours as well as audio tours that have stories from the former sailors of the ship. There's an interactive flight simulator, amazing exhibits, including their extensive aircraft collection that you can even climb into. Now, something to know about haunted places is that for a place to be haunted, it doesn't necessarily have to see a ton of death, though I'm sure the USS Midway, with its history, has seen a few. But when places, especially museums, bring in these objects, as in this aircraft collection, there can be spirits connected to the objects that are brought in, and they tend to make themselves at home with wherever their new location is. 200,000 sailors have served on the Midway, and the current museum curator, David Hansen, also leads a paranormal investigation team for the last 10 years. He began to investigate the reports of the hauntings on the Midway and believes that there could be as many as 30 ghosts on the ship. Some of them could be intelligent haunts, some of them could be residual. So residual haunts are almost like a thumbprint left behind. The person who left the thumbprint isn't necessarily there, but parts of their lives may replay almost like a movie, like that thumbprint being left on the window or whatever it is. It's left behind and doesn't actually have a soul connected to it. But intelligent haunts do. This place definitely has a mix of both. David does report that he feels like overall the spirits on the USS Midway have a positive energy to them. They do experience apparitions of sailors, and many voices are heard on EVPs as well as disembodied voices. The difference being EVPs are not always heard in the moment, and they are recorded on a digital recorder during a investigation. Disembodied voices are people talking when no one's around. I personally have had an experience with this ship, which inspired me to cover it in the series. There was a night where we were out in San Diego when our friends were getting married, and we had dinner just across from where the Midway is docked. While we were wandering around, and I was definitely feeling some energy drawing me towards the Midway, I looked up, and the museum had been closed for a while. I saw silhouettes of sailors on the deck. They were walking around, they were dressed in uniform, and I guarantee that they were not reenactors there that night. It was very interesting because they were just shadows. I didn't really get a whole lot of details besides a little bit of their clothes, but there were several of them. I want to say that there were maybe 5, and it was so quiet up there. I was very close to the ship, and you could not hear actual movement. It's really inspired me to want to go back and to really experience the museum. Other people have also reported experiencing things inside, such as mannequins moving on their own, a very eerie feeling, especially from a specific corridor, and hearing voices coming from different rooms as they walk around. Some even report smelling the smell of old blood. I would love to hear your experiences, though. I know a few of you guys have shared on my previous post a place to experience the paranormal in California. I would love to hear about them again below so that we can all enjoy your stories. And if you enjoy videos like this, make sure to show your support by follow, sharing, and saving for later. Make sure to comment below what state you want to see next.
Get your late night snack. This is Last Thread Before Bed, episode 33. This is a little series where I read scary stories from Reddit before I go to bed, and I try not to get nightmares. So boom, let's get into it. Tonight's scary story is from the subreddit Ghost Stories, and it's from user Imadoko Desuka. When my kids were little, they would stay the weekend at their grandma's, ex-mother-in-law. One day, my son came to me and said, "Dad, I had the weirdest dream last night. These kids were chasing me all night, very excitedly." He was about 7, maybe 6 years old. His sister came up, a couple years younger, and chimed in, Yeah, they were big. My son paid no attention to her but added, and they wore clothes and were mean, after his little sister added, and they chased us in and out of the house. I asked if she heard his dream earlier that day. They both said no, like I was daft. What I didn't know was 1, they shared dreams, and 2, since that was normal for them, why would it be strange for everyone else? Why wouldn't she know the dream they both had together? My bro and I had something like this. We could just know each other's thoughts. We could have almost full conversations without saying anything. Fast forward 20-some years. Dad, said my son. What? I replied. Your creepy-ass video there reminds me of the doll Grandma had. His grandmother with the creepy house built on an Indian burial ground or something, I don't know. Used to collect thrift store dolls and rehabilitate them. What doll? I asked, but knowing what doll he was talking about, I could see it clear as day in my mind. Wearing a red dress with that stupid smile and creepy eyes. The doll with the red dress. It used to talk to me. It'd tell me to take it outside and play with me, he said. Then his sister came in nodding and said, yeah, that doll was hella creepy. It was not a nice come play with me. It was an implied threat. Once again, neither of them noticed it's not normal to have a similar dialogue with the doll, nor is it normal to share the same experience. They also never talked about it. This was their normal. Why would they talk about it? Anyhow, he agreed with her. At night, I would open the closet, lay the doll on the floor, cover it with all the clothes, and close the door. But in the morning, the doors were open, the clothes pushed aside, and the doll was sitting up, staring at the bed. He said, with his sister nodding, I thought maybe his grandpa might have come to play a prank, but he wasn't that sophisticated. I thought for a brief second their grandmother could have moved the clothes, but she was the type that would have hung him back up. Then I thought maybe their cousin tried to do a prank, and I remembered he would dabble in dark magic. He's actually got a spirit bothering him now. Our guides have basically said he needs to deal with it on his own or it won't end. I have more. If that writing style is hokey or too cumbersome to read, or you just don't like it, let me know. But everything really happened. I have stories about ghost hands, a lonely spirit, a spirit stalking someone, a father in a lake looking for his son, ghosts following me and my daughter home, items with attachments, an irked spirit of a late 18th century Latina woman, a haunted town, a haunted cemetery, and a haunted bus route. Wow. Yeah, that was awesome. Let me know what you guys thought about that story. I'll scout his profile and try to find more stories. Follow for more scary stories.
It's one thing to see a ghost outside of your house, but when you start experiencing things inside, I think not. Settle in and let's read some more scary Reddit ghost stories. You can see my uvula when I do that. Intimate. I think this could kind of be like sleepover scaries because I'm in my PJs and we're reading about scary things. I actually already recorded this and my phone completely glitched out on the video. And it's like it just didn't want me to share it. It said, actually not, you're going to have to redo it. So here we go. I was never one to believe in ghosts, and I'm usually quick to dismiss online stories about the paranormal or in general. LOL. I always take them with a grain of salt. That being said, I lived in a house growing up that changed my mind. 2 specific instances come to mind. I'll start with the craziest. Thank you. I used to have a trampoline, and when I was growing up, I spent literally most of my days on it. Even when I wasn't jumping, I'd just be out there hanging out. One night, I had a friend over at my house. I was around 12 years old, and I didn't have a phone yet, but my friend did. We were outside around midnight just talking, hanging out on the trampoline, and he was texting or doing something on his phone, not paying attention. I remember something catching my eye, getting my attention as it stood out against the dark backdrop of the night sky. I'm being dead serious when I tell you that I saw what appeared to be an old-timey soldier, like Civil War, maybe even Revolutionary War. He had a large, tall hat and an old-style military coat. He was white, translucent, see-through, just like the movies, and he was facing away from me and walking towards a gravel road, which I watched him take a good 3 or 4 steps, and I still remember to this day the shock. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was so surprising to me, especially since I didn't believe that there was such a thing. I audibly gasped. I was stunned, and I looked at my friend and said, "We gotta go," and I ran inside. Him seeing my reaction, he of course ran behind me and asked me, "What's going on?" And I remember he kind of got mad. He was a grade older than me. Okay. He instantly wrote it off and didn't believe me, and because of his reaction, I decided to keep the experience to myself as I didn't want to be seen as crazy or a liar. I mean, I get it. If you're spooked, you're like, I don't believe you. Don't be saying that. Sorry your friend didn't believe you. I know what I saw, and it was as real as anything else I've ever seen. It was a full-body apparition, and if not for him being white and translucent, I would have thought he was a guy in a costume walking through my yard. Yeah, that's fair. Even though I never talked about it, it still weighed heavily on my mind. I thought about it constantly. Was it an illusion? Did I fall asleep temporarily? But then about 3 or 4 years later at the same house with a different friend who saw it this time, unlike the other friend who was distracted by his phone. We got out of school and I drove us to my house and nobody else was home at the time, and we walked into the door and went into the kitchen. Right when I walk in, I notice this empty mayonnaise jar upside down on the counter, and it's moving, rocking, kind of teeter-tottering. I instantly thought it was a mouse or something that was trapped in the jar, so I was embarrassed. We watched for a few seconds, and the jar progressively started moving erratically, rocking back and forth and moving along the counter like something was frantically trying to escape it, and it was nearly tipping over. Then it fall and nearly tip over in the other direction. We watched it for around 20-ish seconds while I was thinking of how to dispose of whatever creature was stuck inside. Honestly, that scares me more than a ghost. I grabbed a container and told him I'm going to catch this mouse and for him to flip the jar over so I can trap it once it ran out. Slowly approached this frantically rocking jar and he flipped it and nothing came running out. So I picked the jar up and it was completely empty. That jar was moving around erratically, seemingly by some unseen force. There was nothing that ran when we flipped the jar, and the jar was empty, I swear to God. We were so shocked we hardly even talked about it, because what's there to say? We were stunned and a bit scared, so we left soon after and went to his house, LOL. In a way, it felt good to have sort of confirmation that I wasn't crazy, and it felt good to have a witness. I'm 24 years old now, and I think about it daily, and I'm not exaggerating. Not a day goes by that I don't reflect on it and wonder. We moved from that house before I graduated high school, and I've not encountered anything like that since. And even though they were seemingly innocent, non-malicious encounters, I'd be fine with never experiencing it again, because malicious or not, it's still scary and worldview shattering. I feel you. At least for me. Take it with a grain of salt, as I'm just some random guy on the internet, but for what it's worth, I swear to God, both of those stories are true. I'm curious if this person, they just like never experienced anything else in the house, which I guess thank goodness, because that was enough. But usually when you experience these things, it happens more often. So I'm curious. And I'm wondering if you guys have ever seen anything like this. Any mysterious ghost in the mayonnaise jars? If you would love to share your scary story with me, maybe it's a ghost story, maybe it's a cryptid story, maybe it's an Appalachian story, please go to my email in my bio and share it with me, because I would love to read it. Let me know what you guys think. I want to chat about it, please. I want to chat about it with you, so let me know. So until next time, try not to get haunted. Bye.
Welcome to the Midnight Sesh. We have inhaled some Cat 4. Now let's get into the story. My mom has an uncle that lives in Arkansas. Once or twice a year, my family makes the 12-hour drive to his house and stays there for about a week. This experience takes place at his house. I'm 20 now and would have been around 5 to 7 when this happened. That is important because I can't remember what happened very well. At this point, it's more like I can only remember myself remembering it, if that makes sense. For whatever reason, my mom and I were sleeping on the pull-out sofa bed, and not in any of the 3 spare bedrooms her uncle had. My dad couldn't make it because of work. Anyway, here's where something happens. It's about 4 a.m. It's very dark in the house and not a single light is on. And I'm laying flat on my back when all of a sudden I see something slowly moving in my field of vision and look down at me. The thing has a decently long neck, a perfectly round head, and a pair of horns protruding from either side of its head. For a while, I thought that my eyes had shut down, and somehow I saw this through my eyelids, since I remember seeing a dark silhouette against a slightly less dark background. But as I'm remembering it now, I'm beginning to think that my eyes were open. Now, why would I be lying flat on my back with my eyes open at 4 a.m? I don't know, especially considering that I sleep on my sides. This is one thing that makes me think it could have been a dream. That's not all though. If my memory serves, it spoke a simple hello. This is another thing that makes me think this might have been some kind of nightmare. The voice sounded like the voice of Davy Jones in Pirate of the Caribbean. As a kid, I was scared of Davy Jones. Being raised in a Christian household, I was also afraid of the devil. Found my great uncle's house to be very creepy due to it being very old people and mildly secluded. So there's a chance all these fears merged into a single nightmare. One thing that may cast doubt on it being a nightmare though, is that I don't remember waking up. Once it slowly left my field of vision, I remember just laying there on my back with my eyes shut tight, scared to death to move, or try to wake up my mom for hours because I was worried that it might still be in the room with us. I remember laying in the same position for so long that I actually started to get really uncomfortable. That's all I remember. I never had another paranormal experience despite being a believer. Maybe some of you can help me understand it better. Was I face to face that night with a demon? I mean, you're talking about horns and shit. I'm gonna say yes, unfortunately, because, and again, kiddos. They go for the kiddos, man. Let me know your thoughts down below. Go ahead and like, follow, comment, and share. I love you as always. Bye.
Did you know that the Patsy Clark mansion in Spokane is very haunted? Patrick Clark, also known as Patsy Clark, was a very successful miner back in the 1800s. However, in 1889, after the Spokane fire burnt his mansion, he hired an architect to build his new mansion, which we now call the Patsy Clark Mansion. Kirkland Cutter was the architect who designed this 12,000-foot, 3.5-story mansion. The cost of building this mansion and furnishing it was $13 million. It's located at 2208 West 2nd Avenue in Spokane's historic Browns Edition. The Clarks lived in this mansion until 1915 when Patrick died. Then Mary decided to live in an apartment overlooking the mansion so she could keep an eye on it, and she died in 1926. The mansion became a restaurant at some point, and this is when the activity really started to pick up. Employees would report random cold drafts, they would report feeling like somebody was watching them, and they would also report that it would seem like children were running around in the basement breaking wine bottles. Employees and visitors of this mansion have also seen a woman dressed in older style clothing. This woman is believed to be Mary Clark, the wife of Patrick. Some have reported feeling uneasy and hearing voices of people who aren't there. And every time this mansion is renovated, the activity amps up. Have you been to the Patsy Clark Mansion? If so, did you experience anything paranormal? Tell me down in the comments.
And my cats got really interested in it as well. They would go meow by it and scratch at it. So I've had some weird issues in my flat before, but I never thought that my phone mic would bring up some issues, I guess, if you can call them that. So I moaned about my phone mic being weird and having this weird staticky electric noise every time I try to use it. I've cleaned my mics on my phone a million times. I've looked through it, I've looked online helps, tried headphone, microphone, like different things. There's nothing in my flat really that makes any electric noises. There's no AC, nothing's on, and it still keeps making that noise. But when I go somewhere outside, it doesn't happen. It's kind of just happening in my flat, which is weird. But I've now had to start using my headphone mic because nothing else works. Which I don't mind, it's fine. But it's a little bit weird. And I don't really think much of it. I'm just thinking my phone is probably broken in some way, the mic's broken in some way, I don't care, whatever. And then I tried a different phone and it did it again. And I was losing my mind. So I used my old phone, which I don't think the mic's ever been, like, I don't know, broken. Not that I know of. And I've recorded loads of gigs on it. Sounds great. It's been fine. But yeah, I tried different versions. I tried it on TikTok. I tried just on camera, like just recording video. It's always there. And then today someone suggested maybe it's spirits. Because, well, my flat might be haunted anyway, so maybe that's just them trying to talk to me. That would be so great. You guys can talk to me in a different way, not as a staticky electricy voice, because that's annoying. But yeah, that's so fucking creepy if it's a spirit trying to contact me. I don't know. But yeah, I am a bit woo-woo, so I wouldn't be too surprised. And I think that's why someone suggested it to me, that it could be that. But at the same time, it's a little bit weird. I'd prefer another way of contacting me, not this shit. But I guess maybe they're just trying to take energy from me or something. I don't know. But there is a story regarding my flat. Well, it's not really a story. It's just something I created as a story because I think it's a little weird. So I moved in here, and these are really old Victorian buildings where I live. And I live in a studio flat, so my kitchen and bedroom and living room are one. But I do have a big bathroom, which I really appreciate. And in the bathroom, there's a little cubby, a little Harry Potter cubby under the stairs, because the stairs that are in the hallway go up that way. And in that little cubby, I usually store like suitcases. It's quite small. I can't stand straight in there. I could probably sit in there. I can't even kneel, honestly, probably. It's really small. But there is, when you open the door, there is a little name placard thing in the inner. Now I'm thinking, should I show it? Maybe I'll do a better story time at some point. But there's a little name thing, placard thing, saying Graham, and it's in the inside of the door. And also there's like a little pulley thing that when you go in the cupboardy bit, you can pull the door closed. I find that a little bit weird. And there's like Spider-Man stickers in the ceiling. Who has lived in a studio flat with a child? Like, or is this some kind of something else? I don't know. But me and my friends made it into a ghost story because when I moved the first few nights, the door would just swing open on its own. And it's the kind of door when you push it close, it closes. Like, you have to like really pull it to open it. Like, it doesn't just swing by in the wind. Impossible. And I have 2 cats, so I kind of blame my cats for it. But then I saw it do it, like, when my cats were in the different room. So I was kind of like, how is it doing that? Unless it's Graham. And my cats got really interested in it as well. They would go meow by it and scratch at it. So it just became a story that it's Graham's cupboard, and that's where Graham lives and comes and hangs out with me sometimes. So maybe Graham has not gotten attention lately and now wants to fuck with my mics. Maybe it's just Graham.
This is the moment a killer realizes he's just been caught.
I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
On June 29th, 27-year-old Lauren Giddings was reported missing after concerned family and friends hadn't heard from her in a few days. The following day, local news reporters, along with a camera crew, set up to interview people that lived within the same apartment complex as Lauren before she disappeared. And that's when they pointed the camera to Stephen McDaniel. During the interview, Stephen is describing Lauren as very personable and as nice as can be.
What kind of person was she? I mean, what did you see?
I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable. Very much a people person.
But shortly into the interview, Stephen's body language shifted. The reporter interviewing him revealed that a body had been found. Upon hearing this, Stephen was visibly shaken and needed to sit down.
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
Now, the reporter was obviously concerned about him, thinking that he was just struggling through the loss of a good friend, but what the camera crew didn't know is that Stephen had been stalking Lauren for quite some time before he decided to break into her apartment and murder her. After dismembering her body, he took her remains and dumped them in multiple garbage bins around the complex. Then, he put on the facade of a concerned neighbor and friend, knowing all along that he was the one responsible for her death. Stephen would be named a person of interest a day later, and investigators truly believed that had they not caught him, they would have possibly ended up with a serial killer on their hands. Shortly into their investigation, police would discover that Stephen had been posting on the internet about his hatred toward women and about his desire to torture them. During his interrogation, he wouldn't admit to having anything to do with Lauren's murder, but he did admit to breaking in and stealing protection from his other classmates' apartments. So with this, police were at least able to put him behind bars for burglary while they built a case against him for Lauren's murder. And in 2014, Stephen McDaniel was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison.
I found a video on my grandmother's phone after she passed, and she filmed it 3 days after she was gone. Hi, I'm Nicole, and this is Haunted Threads After Dark, where I read spooky, scary, haunted stories. If that's your thing, then go ahead and turn the volume up, turn the lights down, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. My grandmother Ruth passed away in March. She was 81, and it wasn't a shock. She'd been sick for a while. My mom handled most of the funeral stuff, and I got stuck with a job nobody wants. Going through her house and figuring out what to keep, what to donate, and what to throw away. Yeah, nobody wants that job. It took me 2 weekends. On the second one, I found her old phone in a kitchen drawer, tangled up with rubber bands and expired coupons. It was a cheap flip phone, the kind she never really learned to use. I only grabbed it because my mom asked me to wipe anything personal off of it before we donated the drawer's contents to a thrift store. When I turned it on, the battery had maybe 8% left. There was one unopened message, one missed call from a number I didn't recognize, and a single video file in the gallery. The video was 3 minutes and 40 seconds long. The timestamp said it was recorded at 2:14 in the morning, 3 days after her funeral. I stood in her empty kitchen holding that phone for a long time before I pressed play. I told myself it had to be a glitch, a corrupted timestamp, a phone reverting to some default date after sitting silent in a drawer for weeks. That's the only explanation that let me breathe normally. The video opens on darkness, just black, with this faint hum underneath it, like a refrigerator running in another room. Then the picture stutters into focus, and I recognize the ceiling. It's her ceiling. The popcorn texture, the water stain shaped like Florida that she always complained about and never got fixed. The phone is lying flat on a surface, angled up, like it had been set down rather than held. And then, at 11 seconds in, something crosses in front of the lens. Fast, low to the ground. I paused it there, the first time, and just sat with my back against her kitchen counter for probably 5 minutes before I could press play again. At the 1 minute mark, you hear breathing, not fast, not panicked, slow, even, deliberate, like someone standing very still and trying not to be noticed. It's not her breathing. I knew my grandmother's voice, the little wheeze she'd had since her lungs started going. This wasn't that. This was steady and low, and it did not sound like it belonged to anyone who needed to breathe to survive. At around 2 minutes, the camera, or the phone, I keep having to remind myself it was just a phone lying on a nightstand, shifts. Not a shake, not somebody bumping into it. It rotates slowly, like something reached down and turned it deliberately, angling the lens toward the bedroom doorway. The doorway is empty for a while. You're just staring at it, at the dark hallway beyond, and the breathing keeps going. Closer now, and I swear to you, I was gripping the edge of the counter so hard, my knuckles went white, waiting for something to walk into frame. At 3 minutes and 12 seconds, something does. I'm not going to describe exactly what I saw because honestly, I don't fully trust my own memory of it anymore, and I don't want to plant something in your head that isn't accurate. What I'll say is that it was tall, taller than the doorway should have allowed, which doesn't make sense, I know, and it didn't walk so much as it unfolded into the frame, joint by joint, like something remembering how a body was supposed to work. It stood in the doorway for 11 seconds. I counted, because I made myself watch it a second time to be sure I wasn't imagining the length. It didn't move. It just stood there, facing the phone, facing whatever had been left in that dark room to record it. And then, right at the very end, right before the video cuts to black, you hear a voice, not breathing this time, an actual voice, close to the microphone, low and clear enough that I've listened to it maybe 30 times now, and I still can't explain it away as static or wind or my own imagination. It says my name. Not hello, not who's there, my actual first name. The one only my family calls me, spoken slow and soft, like someone reading it off a label for the first time. The video ends there, 3 minutes, 40 seconds, cutting to black, mid-breath. I called my mom immediately. She swears the phone had been sitting untouched in that drawer since before Grandma got sick. Nobody had used it in over a year. I checked the file metadata later. It's not corrupted. The timestamp is consistent, 3 days after the funeral at 2:14 a.m., recorded on a phone that had no SIM card, no service, and according to my mother, no reason to have ever left that drawer. I still have the phone. I haven't been able to bring myself to delete the video, and I haven't been able to bring myself to watch it again either. It's sitting in a box in my closet right now, powered off, and some nights I lie awake convincing myself I can still hear that hum coming from underneath the lid. I keep thinking about the way it said my name, like it was practicing, like it was going to need to say it again. That's the end of the story. What do y'all think that was? I don't know what it was. Like always, I never know. Obviously it wasn't the grandma because, it wasn't. I can imagine what it could be. I mean, so many different things out there nowadays. So let me know in the comments what you think of the story, and let me know what other types of videos you want to hear. Please comment in there. I love talking to you guys in the comments. If you like this story and these types of stories, please follow me on Haunted Threads After Dark here so that you can hear more of my stories. And also, if you could, just like, comment, and bookmark, that'd be great too. If you have a story that you would like me to read, that is yours. Go ahead and submit it at hauntedthreadsafterdark.com. It's my new website. It's beautiful. It's amazing. I love it. You can move the mouse around and you can see like orbs and other little surprises that are in there. And then until next time, please try to sleep tight if you can. Until tomorrow. Bye.
Here are more spooky stories that I found in TikTok comments. Let's go! I was in a bathroom by myself when I was about 11 and my reflection stopped working. It was me, but it wasn't copying my movements and was just staring at me. I have never looked at mirrors the same since. Me and my cousin threw a rock in the woods when we were little, jokingly saying, "You won't throw it back." The rock was thrown back. We both ran and haven't really talked about it since. One time I was walking home from hanging out with a friend. I usually take a shortcut through the graveyard to get home. The time was about 8:30 to 9 p.m., so imagine pitch dark. As I'm walking through the graveyard, I heard something call my name. The voice sounded like someone I knew. I didn't turn around. I just ran at full speed to the gate of the graveyard, which was locked due to the time. As I'm running, I got a sense that something was running behind me. I didn't look back, just ran full speed to the gate. Once I made it out, I looked back and nothing was there. I dreamed someone's death and funeral in full detail. They died 2 months later. Death the same as my dream and same funeral. Same people, food, conversation, outsides, location. Basically, I was pretty young and I was lying in my bed, and in my doorway I saw a little white dog pass by. We had 0 pets, and it definitely wasn't a dream because I went up and started the day after. This was in the morning. I told my parents and they didn't think much of it. Years later, my family gets our first dog. It's the same white little dog. So not as paranormal, but when COVID first shut everything down, my state/town was a literal ghost town. We have a few factories and fast food places and grocery stores that stayed open, but other than that, there was no one out. It was rare to even pass a car. My ex and I went on a cruise and randomly passed a man in a full hazmat suit, standing completely alone on the edge of the back road. If my ex wasn't with me, I would have convinced myself I made it up. Still not really sure what that was. So I stay at my grandma's house, and I got up at midnight one night and went to the bathroom, which is in the hallway. So after I wash my hands, the lights go out, and I opened the door and I saw a dark figure at the end of the hallway, around 6 foot, skinny, and had red eyes. I woke up one evening to get something to drink. I was very young and I can't remember the age, but at the very most I was 8 years old. It was around 1 to 2 a.m. I went to our kitchen and everyone else was asleep. I slept with my parents and have 0 siblings.
I walk to the kitchen and the drawer to the cabinet swings open and a plate flies out to the ground and shatters. No one was in the kitchen. I rubbed my eyes and started crying. I was a kid. I go to get my mom and she comes and she sees the plate and thinks there's an intruder. So we go to get my dad. My dad wakes up, gun in hand, and everything was normal. No smashed plate, the cabinet wasn't open or anything. Me and my mom were shocked and just went to sleep. A year or so ago, I woke up to 3 shadows standing at the side of my bed. One of them seemed kind of worried that I was seeing them, and it crouched down and actually consoled me. It said it was okay and that everything would be alright. Like, not in a sinister way. Ain't that odd? I even felt calm, too. That's really nice of that ghost. I wonder if maybe they were protecting you from something? When I was little, my uncle would always tell my parents how the government is always up to something. He did so much research and found stuff out. One day he was found dead to unknown causes, and they refused to do any autopsy on him. I was laying on the couch watching a movie for over an hour and my dad came in and said, "When did you get out here? I just saw you in your room." I was 8 years old and I have insomnia, so I'd stay up reading books. My mom used to tap her fingernails on my door to signal that it was late and it was time for me to sleep. I always locked my door at night, but when she'd do that, I'd say, "Okay, Mom, good night, I love you," and she'd answer back. But this time she wasn't answering, so I was like, "Mom, good night, love you." I was annoyed she wasn't saying it back, so I went to open the door and no one was there. I had a chill down my spine. Not wanting to believe it was something bad, I checked on my sibling to see if they were pranking me. They were dead asleep. I checked my mom and she was snoring. I ran back to my room, locked my door, and hid under my covers. I don't normally share scary stories, but there was one particular time where I remember coming up the stairs from my basement and I was carrying some boxes. When I looked down, I saw myself standing at the bottom of the stairs. I shit my pants and dropped the box and ran upstairs as fast as I could. I try to stay away from it / go down there as least as possible. As always, I love these stories. Okay, bye.
I'm not a parent, okay? But something that I will never ever be able to make sense of is how, as a parent, you would feel okay to wait however long it is, whether it's 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 weeks, to report your child missing. And how in the world are you good going to bed not knowing where your child is? That being said, before we get into it, I have to give a massive trigger warning. We're talking about a 5-year-old little boy in today's case. So if you think that listening to this is going to harm your mental health in any way, shape, or form, please take care of yourself, skip this video, and I will see you in my next one. I mean it. I love you. In 2016, Elijah Lewis was born to his mother, Danielle Delphine, and his father, Timothy Lewis, in Phoenix, Arizona. By the following year, so in 2017, his parents had decided to separate, and very quickly the household that he was born into no longer existed. Elijah's father, Timothy, got full custody of Elijah, so following the divorce, he kept him and they stayed in Arizona, while his mom, Danielle, moved back to New Hampshire. But then around 3 years go by, and all of a sudden, Danielle wakes up and decides that she wants to reconnect with her son, Elijah. Up until then, the two of them didn't really have a relationship, so when she reached out and she said that she wanted to be in his life again, Elijah's father, Timothy, was like, "Great, it's good for a child to have two parents who are present, who care for him, who love him." So he was supportive of the idea of letting her in again, and that's what he did. However, because Danielle had not been in Elijah's life, she wasn't aware of some of the developmental challenges that he had been going through. Elijah was still very, very little, and because he had been showing signs of behavioral patterns that needed help and attention, he had been seeing different doctors who cared for him and worked with him to understand and manage those patterns. So he needed extra help and attention, but then again, any little boy his age, 4 or 5 years old, needs a lot of attention and care. And that was something that Danielle was not prepared for. Danielle had been living in Merrimack, New Hampshire with her boyfriend, Joseph Staff. They were actually living at Joseph's mom's house with Joseph's mom, who pretty much supported the two of them. So in that basement lived Danielle, her boyfriend, and their 2-year-old toddler. And in May of 2020, 5-year-old Elijah Lewis would move in with them. Apparently, it was initially only supposed to be for around 30 days. His dad told Danielle that she could take him for 30 days to try and build a relationship with him, and they would see how it went. That was in May. Fast forward to January. Elijah is still living with them in that basement, and then Danielle falls pregnant with her 3rd baby. So now she has a 2-year-old, 5-year-old Elijah, and she's pregnant. She's not working. According to her, she's depressed at home 24/7, having a really hard time, and a really hard time especially when it came to taking care of Elijah, because according to her, Elijah was a very difficult kid to parent. Meanwhile, throughout all of this, Elijah's dad, Timothy, is still checking in on them. He's calling, asking to speak to Elijah. He would FaceTime them to see how things were going, and progressively, with each call, his concern about his well-being started to grow, because Tim was worried that Elijah's behavioral challenges had gotten worse since he got to New Hampshire, and he had become concerned that his son was not receiving the proper medical care that he needed. He got so worried, in fact, that at one point he ended up contacting the New Hampshire's Division for Children, Youth, and Families, also known as DCYF, to report his concerns directly. correctly. So DCYF then opens up an investigation to look into how Danielle is caring for Elijah. Everyone agrees that it is too much for Danielle and she's not taking care of him in the way that she should be, including Danielle. She actually tells Tim at one point, look, this is too much, please take him back, I don't want him. And Tim says that he doesn't really have the money right now, right then and there, to go and pick him up. So after the DCYF investigation, Danielle says, okay, you know what? I'm just going to send Elijah off with my sister in California and she can take care of him. And I guess that was enough for DCYF to back off. But then, for whatever reason, Danielle changes her mind and she thinks, actually, I will keep Elijah. I will enroll him in school and I will keep him for the entire school year. So Elijah stays in New Hampshire for that next year. And throughout that time, something was happening inside of the basement of that house that the outside world could not see. Because Danielle, along with her boyfriend Joseph, did not care for Elijah at all. In fact, you could argue that they hated him. They despised this tiny little boy who his entire life asked for nothing but love was the farthest thing away from what he was shown. In later text messages that would be revealed, it is clear just how much Danielle and Joseph hated Elijah. In a text exchange, Danielle referred to Elijah, 5 years old by the way, as pure evil, complaining about his behavior and comparing him to infamous criminals, writing, quote, I call him the next Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. In another text to a close friend, she writes, quote, it's so sad, but I have no connection with this child. His father took him at the age of 1 and never returned him until last May 2020. He's been getting worse and worse. I want him gone. I cannot handle him anymore. We know that they often punished him physically and withheld food from him. In a text that Danielle sent to Joseph, she wrote, quote, he said he wants food and he wants me to stop starving him because it's not nice. And in another message to him, she wrote, quote, I'm going to him and I mean it. So why exactly she made the choice to keep him when it's clear that she did not want him is perhaps a question that we will never know the answer to. It was October of 2021 when Danielle gave birth to her third baby in the bathtub in that basement of the house. And within days of that baby being born, Joseph took him and he dropped him off at a hospital that was a safe haven location. So he just dropped him off at the hospital for them to take him because clearly they did not want another baby. So when the hospital took this baby and checked him out, they found traces of illegal substances in his system. That was concerning, obviously, so they did their homework and ultimately they were able to connect this baby back to Danielle and Joseph. Because of that, DCYF gets involved with the family again and they needed to go to the house to make sure that things were okay. When Joseph then learns that DCYF is going to stop at the house, he allegedly texted his mother, the owner of the house, and asked her to not bring up Elijah if she was asked about him. But DCYF had been there before, right? This was their second time at that house. So they showed up, they see the couple's toddler, but they don't see Elijah. And they knew for a fact that Elijah had been living inside of that house. So of course, not seeing him raised a lot of questions. The police then ends up getting involved. They tell Danielle that they need to talk to her about Elijah's whereabouts. And she says, okay, cool, I will come to the police station to talk to you. But does she go to the police station? Of course not. Instead, her and Joseph try to flee. But police are on this, thankfully. They've gotten a search warrant for the house and they end up catching them both and bringing them into the station for questioning. It's at that point that authorities realize that Elijah had been missing not for hours, not for days, but for weeks. And they decide to question Danielle and Joseph separately. This is tactical. They're doing this on purpose so that they can see if their stories match up or not. And if not, they can suss it out, hoping that one of them will mess something up in hopes of giving them information that might let them know where Elijah is. Because at that point, they don't know if he's okay. They don't know if it's too late or not. They don't know if he's alive. They don't know anything. And the number one priority is finding Elijah before it is too late. Danielle's story is that she just doesn't know. Yeah, she has no idea. She has no clue where Elijah could be. She has no idea why he's gone. All that she knows is that he isn't here. And they didn't want to report him missing all those weeks ago because she just didn't feel like dealing with DCYF again. She just simply couldn't be bothered. Joseph's story, on the other hand, is that Elijah, a 5-year-old little boy, just left on his own accord. Yeah, he tells authorities that, yeah, he's done this before. He once took off while we were sleeping. One time he left in the middle of the night. We found him out on the street. And this time he just must have walked away when we were sleeping. And that's it. We haven't found him. And yeah, we don't know anything. Investigators tell him, dude, look, we're not stupid. We are actively looking for Elijah. We have a search party out there. We have drones. We have police dogs. We have people on foot. We are looking for him and we do have the resources to find him and we are not going to stop until we do. So if there's something you're not telling us, you're better off coming clean now rather than later because we are going to find him and we are going to figure out the truth. Their stories are simply not matching up. Danielle is claiming that she's the one that woke up in the middle of the night, found out that Elijah was missing, and she says that she went to go wake up Joseph to let him know that he was gone. account, but Joseph is saying that he's the one that noticed that Elijah was missing and he woke her up to tell her. It's not making sense. So that, apart from all the other things, it's obviously concerning, and it's raising red flags all around. On October 24th of 2021, the search for 5-year-old Elijah Lewis came to an end. Authorities located his remains buried in a wooded area of Island Grove Park. There was a press conference held to announce the heartbreaking news, and the police also stated that an autopsy was going to be conducted the following day. The manner of death was very, very quickly ruled a homicide. The cause of death was determined to be violence and neglect, specifically facial and scalp injuries, acute intoxication, malnourishment, and pressure ulcers. The pressure ulcers, also commonly referred to as bed sores, were among the most disturbing details in the medical record. A medical director reviewed the autopsy, and she stated that those sores were the kind of sores that you would find on someone that had been held in restraints. The malnourishment, she also stated, suggested weeks, if not months, without adequate food, and the head trauma was not a single injury. Referring to that, she stated that, quote, it would fall into the category of torture, really. His remains were found at the end of October, but prosecutors believe that Elijah died sometime between September 21st and September 24th, 2021. He was 3 feet tall and he weighed 19 pounds, and just to put his condition into perspective, the average 5-year-old boy his height would weigh approximately 40 pounds. Elijah weighed less than half of that. After getting back the autopsy results, conducting the search warrant in the home, and searching through all the evidence found on both Danielle and Joseph's phones, the truth about what Elijah went through started to come out, and to say that it was awful would be such an understatement. Authorities are certain that violence was something that Elijah experienced very, very, very often, if not daily. At times, Danielle would leave him with clear visible injuries, and she would take pictures of him and send them to Joseph, saying things such as, quote, look at this effing kid's face. And Joseph would text back and call Elijah a plethora of horrible names. They complained about him more oftentimes than not. They would call him slurs. They would also talk about how to punish him and about withholding food from him and about how big of an inconvenience he was. And after all of the evidence that they gathered, this is what authorities think happened that horrible night. They believe that Danielle got angry at Elijah for whatever reason and then took him to the bathroom. In the bathroom, she threw him around, colliding his head with the shower hard enough that his head broke the shower tiles from the force that was used. Elijah was in and out of consciousness when Danielle left him in the bathroom with serious injuries on his head. By the time that Joseph got home, Elijah was still unconscious, but he was still alive. Yet, instead of calling 911 or calling anyone for help, all Joseph did was wrap up his head and put him into bed. Authorities
So listen to me.
What would you do if you got a DoorDash order to a house that looked completely abandoned, but when you were standing on the porch, the delivery instructions updated to bring it inside? This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about someone who says that they were door dashing late at night and they saw something that they just can't explain. This happened last fall. I used to do DoorDash at night after my regular job. It was easy money and I didn't mind it most of the time. It was a little after 11 and I was trying to do one more order before heading home. I picked up the order from a small fast food place and started driving to the address. The farther out I went, the fewer lights there were. Houses got farther apart and there were hardly any cars. When I pulled up, the house looked empty. There was no lights on, there wasn't a car anywhere that I could see, and the grass was definitely overgrown and the walkway had weeds coming up through the cracks. The whole house looked completely like nobody had lived there for a while. I thought the app had to have been wrong, so I checked the number on the mailbox and then the number by the door. It matched. I sat in my car for a few seconds because I really did not want to get out, but the app still said I was at the right place, so I grabbed the bag and went up to the porch. The front door was almost shut, but not fully. It was just cracked. I checked the delivery instructions again, and it still said, leave at door. So I bent down to set the food beside the mat, and my phone buzzed. The instructions changed. It now said, bring it inside. I just stared at the screen, and then I looked up at the front door, and it was open a little wider than before now. There was no wind, nothing outside was moving. Then I looked up, and the front door was open a little wider than before. There was no wind, there was nothing outside moving. I said, hello? Nothing answered. Then I got another message through the app. You can come in. I started backing down the porch steps, and that's when I heard movement inside the house. I heard what sounded like bare feet running across old wood somewhere just inside, quick and light at first and then heavier, like whatever it was had started further back in the house and was suddenly coming straight towards the front door. I froze for half a second, and honestly, I should have run then, but I took the delivery photo first because I wanted proof I had actually made it there. I needed that job and I didn't want support acting like I was making stuff up. So I set the bag down, took the picture, and right after that, I heard a voice from inside the house say very quietly, "That's not inside." I grabbed the bag and ran back to my car. I locked the doors and sat there shaking with the food still in my lap. I was trying to decide whether to cancel the order or call support or just leave. Then the app updated by itself. It said, "Handed directly to customer." I had not handed it to anybody. While I was staring at that, I looked back at the house, and the front door was opening wider. Slowly, not swinging open, just easing wider, like someone on the other side was pulling it without wanting the hinges to make any noise. I could see further into the house now, but not much. It was dark, and then something moved in the doorway. At first, my brain tried to make it into a person. That only lasted about a second, though, because it was too tall for the